Guys, thanks for being here and welcome to Appalachia Works at Bitsource. Now, Bitsource has asked us to do this podcast to try to explain about some of the great things that are going on in our region that so many people have no idea. I'm going to start by asking you to introduce yourselves and tell me what you do.
Great. Thank you, Cindy, and thanks for the opportunity. My name is John Willoughby, and I'm the Director of Data and Enterprise Solutions for East Kentucky Network. And basically that encompasses the data center and fiber sales in our area.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ed Calhoun. I'm the operations manager for the data center, and again, from a high level, my job is to make sure that the data center stays operational 24/7.
Which is pretty important to keep doing that,
Yes,
right?
it is. Yes, it is.
Well, you know, the idea of a data center, big building that stores data, I get that, but store it for who and for what? And help me understand the scope of this.
Sure. Basically, we will store data for anyone, from small to large businesses. From a data center perspective, you know, you have your different tiers of data centers. Fortunately, our data center is a tier 3 designed data center, which ensures 99.9% uptime, which is very important for businesses who need that.
Okay, so a tier 3. Can you give me more information? What's a tier 2 and a tier 1 so that I can compare?
Sure. A tier 2 ensures 99%. A tier 1 ensures 90% uptime.
Okay.
And so tier 3 is 99.9%. And then they also have a tier 4, which is 99.99%.
To put tier 3 in perspective, that means we can be down for an hour and a half a year.
Right. A year.
A year.
Yes.
That's mind-blowing. That's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And you said you can store data for anybody, but it sounds like at that level, it's going to be some high-level data, right? These are what, healthcare, educational?
Sure.
What kind of organizations would need to store their data?
Sure. Ideally, healthcare.
Yes.
Really, any organization, from small mom and pop country stores. You know, you run a cash register, you run a point of sales software program. All of that is data that is to be stored. You know, from the small end and then up to hospitals who, of course, have massive amounts of data that they need to operate. Educational institutions, governmental entities, many.
Sounds like a lot of stuff, though, that has to have a super high level of security.
Yes.
Can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Sure. Physically, we have, it's gated. We have several cameras around the property. I think we're around 70 cameras inside and outside. It's all biometric access and card access throughout the building. So customers will have biometric access to their areas. Everything that's card access is restricted.
Okay. And what about, you always hear about one of the biggest news stories anytime is when a hospital gets hacked in some way.
Right.
Are there protections in place for things like that?
Yeah, they call that disaster recovery, or DR for short. That would be, for a hospital, for example, would mirror their data in a facility like ours in case that their main source gets hacked and gets, ransomware or something like that. They still have a backup copy offsite.
Say that's pretty important to have,
Yes.
especially in today's world. So how on earth did we end up with a big old data center like this in Floyd County, Kentucky? Is there anything else like it around us?
Not to my knowledge in Eastern Kentucky, not to the size that we offer.
Okay, so tell me how that happened. How did we get this?
Thanks to the foresight of we're owned by the 5 local landline companies in the area in Eastern Kentucky. And thanks to their foresight, just like they did with fiber and Appalachian Wireless, they saw the need that for data storage and the potential growth that would bring to the company. And so here we are with the data center.
And you're probably, I assume, you're serving customers from all over.
Yes.
Right? They're not just all local.
No, actually, many customers from outside the area come into a data center like ours because of the distance. You know, if you think about
the term is geo-redundant.
Right.
Tell me what georedundant
That
means.
means that you have so many miles between your main site and your backup site.
Oh, so that's smart in case there's like a natural disaster, right?
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And so if a natural disaster happens in your area, you certainly don't want your data there along with your company. And so you store it a couple of miles, 100 miles away.
Or 1,000.
Or 1,000, yes.
And I mean, the thing about a data center is you could be in another country and still have a presence in our data center.
Okay.
As long as you have connectivity to our data center, you can have a presence there.
That makes a lot of sense.
And because of our fiber network in the area, we're able to offer the transport to and from many areas. You know, we connect to data centers in Chicago and in Ashburn, which are two very large peering hotels across the nation. And so once you get there, you're anywhere in the world that you want to be.
So tell me a little bit more about this history. You said, they had foresight. They realized this was going to be a need. How long has the data center been here? When did you start?
2018 was when construction started. I think the planning started a couple years before that. I got pulled into it I was on the switch side, on the cellular side of the company at the time, and I got pulled into it because I used to work for Verizon, and we had data centers there, so I had some experience with the data centers. So the owners decided that this was going to be a good business venture. It's a growing field. I know at some of the symposiums I've been to, they've said that data centers were poised to bypass coal and gas as far as income. I mean,
That's interesting.
It's gotten that big worldwide.
Yeah.
So it was a big investment for them, a big risk for them, but they thought it was going to be a good investment. I think it will be, in time once customers get more comfortable with it, because it's a new business in this area.
Yeah. How do you go about getting customers?
Well, we're able to, because we have Appalachian Wireless and we have our fiber network, we're able to pull from that customer base. That's how we've started getting our name out. And then you just market. You market not just locally, you market regionally, statewide, and then regionally in the United States as well.
Okay. Not doing overseas stuff, just
No.
U.S.? Okay.
No, we're not opposed to it. We're just not there yet.
Okay. Why not? Let's
Why
conquer
not?
the world.
Right. You're not limited.
Yeah.
That's what I would think anyway. I like to think big.
Right.
What are some of the challenges that you all have encountered? Are there challenges to operating a center like this in Central Appalachia specifically?
Probably the biggest challenge for us is this location. There aren't we're not as population dense, so there's not as many big companies here locally for us to market to. So that in itself's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's like I said, we can have customers anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
That's also an opportunity because we're not populated, and so people who want their data secure, they don't necessarily want it in a populated area, and so we're able to offer that security.
Yeah.
Well, you said something, I think, before we were actually we started rolling about how secure the site is. Tell me a little bit about that.
Because we're Tier 3, part of that was we had to meet certain security standards. And that's, we have a security gate to get into the property to begin with. We have cameras everywhere. We have biometric access, which is fingerprint scanners. We have card access. All the racks, individual racks and our data hall are kept locked 24/7. So, I mean, there's several layers of security there for somebody to get into the equipment.
But even the land that you're built on is super stable, right?
Yes, it is. During the construction, there were a lot of challenges with that property, and because of that, we had to put a lot of extra work into the property to develop it, and that resulted in us being on a very stable piece of property.
Well, I mean, it's good to know you. I don't know if we should ever say proof, but you might be kind of earthquake proof.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and because of where we're located, we're kind of sheltered by the mountains there too. So because we kind of sit in a valley, and we're at a higher elevation, we don't have to worry about flooding, anything like that. I know during the construction, the drainage was taken into consideration, and that's been addressed. So we're in good shape.
And because we are in a valley, we have mountains on three sides of us, and that is our fencing.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Natural.
Natural.
God's fencing is
Yes.
what you've
Yeah.
got there.
The most secure, right?
Yeah.
We're also designed to withstand 150 mile an hour straight line wind.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. total aside here, but growing up, I was always told that tornadoes couldn't get you in the mountains because they can't touch down. Well, we now know
not
that
the
is
case.
not
Yeah.
true.
They certainly can.
But but to protect yourself against that level of straight line winds is a pretty big deal.
yeah.
Well, and the 150 mile an hour straight line winds equates to an F3 tornado.
Yeah, that's pretty severe.
Yeah, it is. So I started saying, are there challenges to operating something like this in Central Appalachia? And instead, all you've told me are there's a bunch of positives to operating.
positives, yeah.
And the fact that you are able to serve customers from, as you said, so far all over the country, the continental U.S., if somebody were thinking about locating in Central Appalachia to run, whether it was obviously a data center or anything else, that their customers are kind of global, you wouldn't see any roadblocks, would you? I mean, what would you advise them?
No, I think we have, I don't think, I know we have the infrastructure as far as transport. We have the fiber infrastructure, and now we have the data storage infrastructure for any businesses that may have those needs.
Yeah. I've been hearing that a lot from people we've been talking to, that they're like, people think there are roadblocks here, but there really aren't. There's more benefit
Right.
to establishing a business in this region.
Right.
And you guys have been doing it now for a while. Do you still have capacity to take on more customers?
We do, we do, and we have capacity to grow as well. We have we have 2 data halls within our current footprint. One of which we're building, or we're populating. Thank
Good
you.
word. I like that. Okay.
And we have a second data hall that is ready to be built out, and then next to that we have land prepped already that can be put under roof very quickly.
So the sky's the limit.
Sky's the
Yeah.
limit.
I said, conquer the world. Now you're really telling me you are equipped to maybe do that. So that's great. We didn't get into a lot personally, but I always have to do this. Are you guys native Appalachians?
Yes.
Yes.
Tell me about your growing up and how you came to be in this place.
Sure. I'm originally from the foothills of Appalachia in Bourbon County, Kentucky, and I met and married my wife at Eastern Kentucky University, and she is from Floyd County, and we've lived here for almost 30 years now. So
Yeah, you're official.
I hope to be official by now. Yes.
Card carrying. How about you?
I grew up in the burgeoning metropolis of Heinemann, Kentucky. I left there when I was 18, joined the Marine Corps, which is where I got my most of my education. I was avionics on fighter planes,
Wow.
worked on electronics. And after that, I applied that to a couple different careers. I worked for GTE, Verizon, Continental Telephone, Motorola, and then ended up here.
Okay. So it sounds like neither of you ever wanted to live anywhere else. Is that fair?
No.
I lived in D.C. for a while, and you can have it. I'd rather be here.
Yeah, I get that. I really do. Now, I would assume the data center doesn't have a big workforce in terms of labor.
It doesn't.
It's pretty small.
Currently, we have 4 employees
Yeah, because again, the work's all done.
and a host of support staff, IT, and other individuals.
Sure.
Yeah.
But we have 4 core employees.
But in terms of employees, and I know this has been true because I've talked a lot with people from EKN and Appalachian Wireless, you all have a very stable workforce.
We do. We do. We've been in business since the late 90s, starting with fiber and wireless, and now with our data center. And so we hope to continue many, many years.
And it's been one of the biggest blessings, I think, doing business in this region is having people from here that work here. Just
Yes.
there's a work ethic that you can't compare.
Right. And, our wireless customers constantly talk about how pleased they are to be able to call into a call center and listen to people who sound just like them and know where Mud Creek is or, where Greasy Creek is. And they can say those terms and immediately get a response from the call center.
Oh, yeah.
Individuals.
That's a big benefit.
Yeah.
So if another business, a mid-sized business, say, was considering coming here, and we've talked about that just a little bit, but what would you say to them to encourage them to start up here?
So for us, we've been in business for over 30 years now, and we kind of are experts in what we do as far as transport, as far as data storage, and even wireless. And so we would encourage any business who has, say they're selling plants. Let us store your data needs so you can concentrate on the plants. Let us use our expertise to help you make money in your business.
That makes sense. Sounds good.
Yep.
And this man will keep it running.
And this man
That's
will
my
keep it
job.
going.
So you've both been with EKN for quite a while, right? How many
Yes.
years?
16 for me.
I've been 25
Okay.
in November. Yeah.
Once again, as I said, people get in and they just stay because it's
Right. Great place to work.
it is a great place to work, but also it's testament, I think, to the people who work there.
Yeah.
You know,
We're a small family. We joke a lot that we are like brothers and sisters. We'll squabble one minute and hug and make up the next. It's one big happy.
just don't
family.
let
It's
anybody
great.
else say anything.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You can fight within the family,
Right.
but
Right.
you don't let outsiders do it.
Yeah.
I get that completely.
It's great.
Well, guys, thank you all. Is there anything we haven't talked about? Because I feel like there's probably some other aspects of the data center that we haven't talked about. And again, the idea being we're doing something really good here in Central Appalachia, something that a lot of people may not have known about. Are there other things that you'd be surprised to know this? Can you think of something like that?
From my perspective, I think one of the biggest things that I would like for people to take away is the package that we could offer with the transport through fiber and the data storage that we have at the data center, the opportunity that we have to answer any of the problems that local businesses might have. We can answer those solutions for them.
Right.
Okay. Well, you blew my mind when you said mom and pop's place that has a cash register. I thought data storage was only for big companies.
Well, it can be, but it can be for
But it doesn't
small as
have
well.
to
It
be.
doesn't
No,
have to be.
no.
Okay.
Right.
Anybody who has IT equipment could benefit from putting it in our facility.
Yeah. I remember, I'm going to obviously allude to my age here, but I remember when we first started getting computers at work and somebody had to carry a little thing out with them every night so it didn't stay in the building.
Right,
That
right.
was our data storage.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right.
this is now that exponentially times a million.
Right.
So now it's just carried out over fiber.
Right. Right. Nobody physically has to do
Right.
that.
Right.
I've got something else I'd like to ask about. Do you have any competition here in this area for what you do?
Like I said, the only competitor we have, which is not really a competitor, is a data center across the state line in Virginia, but they cater strictly to federal government and state government, so they're not really a competitor for us.
Okay. It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, guys, thank you again. This has been a pleasure, and I've learned a whole lot about the data center and another, what I would consider innovative thing happening in Central Appalachia, and that's the EKN data center.
Great. Thank you so much, Cindy, for spotlighting the area.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Bitsource has made that an important part of their mission. They, and I'm sure you all know, started several years back, and the idea was we're going to teach people who used to mine coal to write code.
Right.
That's an innovation. So they like to show the innovation of
Sure.
what so many companies are doing. That's why we're here.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.